Well, I am an urban sociologist at the University of Strasbourg in France, and I am working on urban policies related with housing and regeneration of neighborhoods. And the first distinction, which is most important to make, is between inner cities, neighborhoods, and periphery neighborhoods. In the inner city, you have in dilapidated and substandard housing, you have a concentration of poor and migrants. And these people live in substandard conditions, and the renewal policy is a policy used to be in the 60s a policy of destruction, demolition, and then construction of new buildings. But these new buildings were most of them not for housing, but for commercial activities, for administration, for finance, and so on. And poor people had to move out from their neighborhood. In the 70s, a new policy was set up, and this new policy was pretended to allow migrants and poor people to stay in the neighborhoods in better conditions. And for this, a housing subsidy was given to them. But this was not enough, because the inner city, when it is improved, modernized, is very attractive for what we call now the bourgeois bohème, bobos, and they look after such neighborhoods, and they come pretending they're interested because it is inexpensive, it is popular, and it has a working class culture, and it is attractive. But when they are coming, the prices are going up, and the poor people, whether foreigners or French, they have to leave. And what was formerly a working class neighborhood is becoming a middle class neighborhood. And this is a first system. The second is in the periphery. In the 60s, there was building at a large scale of social housing in the periphery. But this social housing was modern, new, in much better housing conditions, but it was the destruction of communities. Poor people had to leave their relatives and friends in the inner city and to live in new neighborhoods. They knew nobody, they were isolated, and for most of them it was a loss of their identity. In the 70s, a new policy was of regenerating these neighborhoods. And a big issue was what to do. Is the problem related with space and urban planning, or is the problem social? And different answers have been given. The special answers, yes, the urban or spatial answer was to say we have to modernize housing, or if it's too dilapidated, we have to destroy this housing and create better housing instead. But people are very reluctant to it, and they are afraid if it's better, it will be too expensive and not for them. And another solution is to say it's first a social problem, and we have to look for giving people a job when they are unemployed. We have to look for better education and so on. The problem in most cases, there was a lip service for the necessity of social, educational improvements, but not very much is done. And regularly you have new governments telling we shall make big new transformations, but it's always the same problems, the same solutions, and it's cosmetic solutions. People make promises, but not very much come afterwards. And this is a main problem in France. The second issue, most important, most of these migrants in France are coming from ex-colonies, and they have memories of colonization. They have been living in countries which were exploited by the French metropolis, and now they live in the metropolis, but at the margins of it, and they feel colonization is going on new ways, and they still are the victims. And this is, in my view, a most important explanation to urban riots which occurred massively in France in the year 2005. And new riots have occurred since, but very localized at different, and many promises have been made at that time, but they haven't been fulfilled, and people are still in the same conditions, and the problems are staying. And this is a major criticism I am doing at the present policies towards our suburbs. There's a rhetoric, but many promises are made, but very little is made, and there is not enough money for it, or only promises. This is what I feel the worst weakness of the present French planning policies in the periphery, in the dilapidated social housing areas.